Could we, living in the 21st century, actually behold the true face of Jesus? This question, seemingly only found in the Bible, has unexpectedly found an answer, as modern science has just revealed a shocking secret about the Shroud of Turin, a sacred relic believed to have wrapped the body of Jesus after his crucifixion. Today, we will together turn the pages of a mysterious history, discovering the truth behind the Shroud of Turin and the image of Jesus. Could this be concrete evidence of the resurrection of the Savior? Or is it just a timeless masterpiece of art? What is the truth about the Shroud of Turin? Miracle or science? A prophecy fulfilled? Join The Truth About Bible Prophecy as we explore this mystery. The Shroud of Turin, a sacred relic shrouded in mystery, is believed to have wrapped the body of Jesus after his passion. On the surface of this nearly 4-meter-long linen cloth is the faint image of a man bearing the marks of wounds, similar to the description in the Bible of Jesus' suffering. What is strange is that this image is not a stain or paint, but was created by a subtle change in the fibers of the cloth, a mark that modern science has not yet been able to explain. For centuries, the Shroud of Turin has attracted the attention of countless pilgrims, scientists, and theologians. Could this be concrete evidence of the life, death, and resurrection of the Savior? Or is it simply a timeless masterpiece of art? Each test, each analysis, brings new findings, but raises even more questions. The mystery behind this shroud is not only a reminder of faith, but also a journey to discover the supernatural beyond human understanding. And recently, in August 2024, Italian scientists announced a shocking new discovery, revealing the truth behind the Shroud of Turin. So, what is that truth? Let's find out together in this article. The mysterious journey of the Shroud of Turin. First appearance. In 1353, a famous knight named Geoffroy de Charny built a small chapel in the village of Relic in northern France. Geoffroy also planned to display some precious relics in this chapel, not only to share with the parishioners, but also to generate additional income for the parish. Because at that time, visiting churches and donating money was a common custom. 2 years later, the chapel was completed. Among the relics on display, one item in particular attracted attention: a 4.4 meter long, 1.1 meter wide linen cloth. On the cloth, the faint image of a man appeared. His body seemed to have suffered a lot of pain, especially in the areas of his hands and feet, where there were traces of blood. The person in charge of the exhibition stated firmly that this was the shroud donated by the knight Geoffroy. It was extremely valuable because it was the very cloth that had wrapped the body of Jesus after his passion. The cloth was quickly called the Shroud of Jesus. This news caused a great stir. Christians from all over flocked to Relic to see it with their own eyes. The small chapel in the village of Relic became a place of pilgrimage, bringing significant revenue to the parish. But where did this cloth come from? Where did Geoffroy find it? At that time, no one asked this question. People were very simple and accepted what they were told. However, Geoffroy did not have the opportunity to explain this mystery because immediately after the chapel was completed, he died on the Anglo-French battlefield. And the secret about the origin of the shroud became an unanswered question. From France to Italy, nearly 100 years later, in 1453, the shroud appeared in the capital of Chambéry of the Savoy dynasty, a powerful family that originated from eastern France. More than 20 years later, this dynasty moved the relic to its new capital, the city of Turin in Italy. From here, the shroud was kept at the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin. A separate chapel was built here to protect the relic. The name Shroud of Turin was also born from this. Many people believe that the image on the shroud is the true face of Jesus, left by him through some miraculous power. This is seen as a miracle, a testament to the presence of God. They believe that the shroud is the only and true evidence of Jesus' appearance. But there was one thing that puzzled researchers and people. If this was truly the Shroud of Jesus, what was its origin? And how did Geoffroy de Charny come to possess such an important relic? This question would continue to puzzle scientists and historians for centuries to come. The controversy surrounding the origin. Why did the Shroud of Jesus disappear for more than 1,000 years and then suddenly reappear? This is the question that historians have been constantly seeking to answer. To understand the journey of the Shroud of Turin, they must first verify a basic fact. Was Jesus actually wrapped in linen after his passion, according to the customs of that time? The answer to this question is clearly recorded in the four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These books all describe this event similarly. In summary, the story goes like this. After Jesus was crucified and died on the cross, a disciple named Joseph, along with a Jew who sympathized with Jesus named Nicodemus, asked permission to take his body down from the cross. They used a linen cloth to wrap Jesus' body before sunset. They buried him in a tomb that Joseph had prepared for himself. The tomb was near Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified, in a garden belonging to the land of the Jews. After that, they used a large stone to seal the entrance of the tomb. Thus, according to the Bible, it is completely true that Jesus was wrapped in linen. But where did this cloth go for more than 1,000 years? And how did it somehow fall into the hands of the French knight Geoffroy de Charny? After many years of research, historians have traced and reconstructed part of the journey of the Shroud of Turin. After Jesus' passion and resurrection, a few centuries later, the shroud was moved to Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. The appearance of the shroud here may be related to Emperor Constantine the Great, who elevated Christianity to the state religion. In an effort to collect relics, the Eastern Roman government may have found this shroud among the people and brought it to Constantinople for preservation, allowing believers to come and venerate it. Over time, many centuries quietly passed. In 1204, Pope Innocent III launched the Fourth Crusade. However, instead of advancing to Jerusalem, the Crusader armies were drawn into a dispute over the throne in the Eastern Roman Empire. Instead of liberating the Holy Land, they turned to attack Constantinople. After capturing Constantinople, the Crusaders looted and destroyed the city, taking countless relics and treasures from churches and palaces. Many important Christian relics, including the shroud, are believed to have fallen into the hands of the Crusaders during this event. Some relics were later sold in European markets or fell into the hands of collectors. The next time the shroud appeared was in 1349, more than 100 years after the sack of Constantinople. At that time, the French knight Geoffroy de Charny participated in the Smyrna Crusade campaign, now in Turkey, near the Mediterranean Sea. The expedition was a great success, and it is believed that Geoffroy may have acquired the shroud during this battle. Historians speculate that the shroud was sold or given to Geoffroy during this time, and he brought it back to France. The story of the Shroud of Turin's journey, from the time of Jesus to the hands of the knight Geoffroy de Charny, still has many mysteries that have not been solved. But clearly, it has gone through major events and devastating wars to become one of the most famous relics in the world. Geoffroy de Charny obtained the shroud during the Smyrna Crusade campaign. About 100 years later, the Savoy dynasty bought the relic from Geoffroy's granddaughter and placed it in a church in Chambéry. About 100 years later, the shroud was moved to the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin. During this time, a serious incident occurred. In 1532, a major fire broke out at the chapel in Chambéry. The fire melted the silver protecting the shroud, causing the silver to flow inside and burn a part of it. Fortunately, the chapel staff managed to extinguish the fire in time, saving the shroud. But the burn marks and water stains remain to this day, becoming part of the history of this relic. Scientific research and new discoveries. The Shroud of Turin Research Project. Since the Shroud of Turin appeared, the controversies surrounding it have never subsided. Christians believe that this is a true relic, and the image on the cloth is the true image of Jesus. On the other hand, opponents argue that it is just a hoax. In 1390, after 35 years of being displayed at the church in Lire, Bishop Pierre d'Arcis sent a letter to Pope Clement VII, declaring that the shroud was a forgery. He also said that he had found the artisan who created the cloth. Pope Clement VII was shocked by this information, but eventually issued a directive allowing the shroud to continue to be displayed at the church in Lire, on the condition that it be clearly stated that this was a work of art, not a true relic. However, Pope Clement VII's successors withdrew this statement, restoring the belief that the Shroud of Turin was a true relic. In 1946, when the Savoy dynasty ended its rule in Italy, the last king donated the shroud to the Vatican in 1983, making it the personal property of the Pope. Since 1978, scientists have begun a series of in-depth studies to examine the authenticity of the Shroud of Turin. This project was called the Shroud of Turin Research Project, abbreviated as STURP. This project attracted 33 scientists and received support from the Vatican. Initial research results showed that the image on the cloth was indeed created by a body that had been crucified. The few bloodstains on the cloth were also confirmed to be human blood, and there were no traces of paint from the Middle Ages on the cloth. This conclusion directly refuted Bishop Pierre d'Arcis's accusation in 1390 that the shroud was just a forgery. The Maillard reaction hypothesis. There is a hypothesis that the shroud is just a work of art, possibly created by artists of that time to enhance their reputation. They claimed that the image on the shroud was painted by them. However, the STURP research team affirmed that, based on their knowledge, in the 14th century, there was no technology that could create such a realistic image permanently imprinted on cloth. Even today, scientists still cannot explain how that image appeared on the cloth. In 2003, a member of the STURP team, Dr. Roger Brevoort, put forward an interesting hypothesis. He worked at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in the United States and suggested that this phenomenon could be related to the Maillard reaction. The Maillard reaction is a chemical reaction that occurs between sugars and amino acids in food when heated or at room temperature, creating brown or black compounds. The easiest example is when baking bread. The crust turns brown thanks to this reaction. Roger Brevoort argued that when Jesus suffered on the cross, his body became severely dehydrated. After death, the decomposition process began to release a large amount of amino acid compounds from the surface of the body. At the same time, linen in the 1st century had a different production technology than today, with a higher content of natural sugars. When the body was dehydrated, it could reach a temperature of about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, equivalent to 40 degrees Celsius. This led to the Maillard reaction in the areas of the body that were in contact with the cloth. This reaction created brown compounds that adhered to the linen fibers, thereby forming the image of the person. Although this hypothesis sounds complicated, it is quite convincing in the scientific community. In particular, Roger Brevoort's team conducted experiments in the laboratory, using the Maillard reaction to create images on linen. However, the results they obtained were only random shapes, not forming a specific image. Meanwhile, the image on the Shroud of Turin is extremely detailed and sophisticated, with eyes, nose, mouth, and even a beard clearly depicted, as if hand-drawn by a talented artist. This disappointed Roger Brevoort, because he did not find any archaeological evidence from tombs of the same era with similar images on shrouds. Without supporting evidence, his hypothesis could not be proven: the influence of burial chemicals. In 2015, another study was conducted by Giulio Fanti, a scientist at the University of Modena, Italy. He hypothesized that, according to the burial customs of the Jews in the 1st century, the bodies of the dead were buried within 24 hours. With the hot climate in the ancient Near East, To reduce odors and preserve the body, they often used beeswax, perfumes, and other fragrances applied to the body before wrapping it in a shroud. Giulio Fanti suggested that these chemicals may have interacted with the linen, leading to the appearance of the image of the person. Giulio Fanti's hypothesis especially emphasized the image imprinted on the back of the shroud. The image on the back of the shroud is clearer than the front. The reason is thought to be that because the body was lying on the linen, the oils and beeswax used would accumulate on the back of the body due to gravity, creating a clearer image on the back. This hypothesis seemed reasonable at first. However, in 1978, the Sturepy research team used many different imaging devices and collected samples from the shroud for analysis under a microscope. They examined the chemical composition of the samples, but found no traces of oil, fragrances, or beeswax as Giulio Fanti had suggested. Giulio Fanti explained that the fire in 1532 may have evaporated these substances. However, there was no evidence to support his hypothesis, so it was only considered an unsubstantiated speculation. In addition, archaeological excavations in the Middle East in the 20th century discovered many tombs from the 1st century, but none of the shrouds in them had images of people like the Shroud of Turin. This shows that oil and beeswax were not enough to create the image effect on the cloth. Without supporting evidence, Giulio Fanti's hypothesis could not stand. Secondo Pia's astonishing discovery. In 2023, in an interview, photographer Barry Schwartz of the Sturp Project recounted an astonishing discovery in 1898. At that time, Italian amateur photographer Secondo Pia took the first photograph of the Shroud of Turin. Surprisingly, when developing the film, the image on the negative was much clearer than what could be observed with the naked eye. This proved that the image on the shroud was more suitable for analysis with optical equipment. Barry Schwartz believed that in his photography career, he had never seen such a strange object. If photography only appeared around 1826, was there a similar photographic technique in the 14th century? Before 1993, a researcher named Nicholas Allen hypothesized that in the Middle Ages, people could use silver nitrate to coat linen, then place the cloth in a dark room. When light from the outside shone through a small hole, the image would be imprinted on the surface of the linen, similar to how a giant negative film is created. This could explain why the Shroud of Turin had the image of a person. Barry Schwartz said this was an interesting hypothesis. However, he and the Sturepy team examined the shroud in 1978 and found no traces of silver nitrate. Therefore, this hypothesis could not succeed. Lasers and Paolo Di Lazzaro's research. In 2011, Italian physicist Paolo Di Lazzaro published a study on how images could be created on the shroud. He used a different method, using lasers. In this method, high-energy ultraviolet laser beams were shown on linen similar to the Turin shroud. The laser pulses were emitted in short periods, only 40 nanoseconds each time, creating images with similar lines and color shades to the shroud. However, Paolo Di Lazzaro admitted that to create the entire image of a person, like on the Shroud of Turin, 14,000 laser devices would need to operate simultaneously. This is beyond the capabilities of current technology. It was truly impossible. Modern laser technology only appeared around 1946. So how could there have been 14,000 high-energy laser devices in the mid-14th century, or even in the 1st century when Jesus suffered, to create the image? This hypothesis was clearly ahead of its time. Carbon-14 analysis method. While some scientists were trying to explain the mechanism of image formation on the shroud, other scientists tried to determine the age of the shroud using the carbon-14 isotope analysis method to verify its authenticity. In 1988, a group of British scientists, with the permission of the Pope, took small samples from the shroud to bring back to the laboratory for carbon-14 analysis. Their results showed that the shroud was produced around the 13th or 14th century. This was completely consistent with the statement of Bishop Pierre d'Arcy de Troyes in 1390 that the shroud was just a forgery. This result led many people to believe that the Shroud of Turin was actually just a work of art from the Middle Ages. However, 4 other groups of scientists also analyzed samples from the shroud, but their results showed that the shroud dated from about 300 BC to 400 AD. So what is the truth? Most scientists did not accept the carbon-14 analysis results. The reason is very simple. The shroud has gone through many events in history. It has been passed through many hands, burned in a fire, repaired, and restored many times. These factors have caused the shroud to be severely contaminated. The samples may contain material from any era. In addition, to protect the shroud from damage, researchers were only allowed to take a very small amount of sample. This made it impossible for them to ensure that the sample truly reflected the age of the shroud. Therefore, the carbon-14 method could not provide a reliable conclusion. Analysis of the physical properties of linen. Faced with this impasse, some members of the STURP research team sought answers by analyzing the physical properties of linen samples from different eras. They compared samples from the Middle Ages to samples from 5,000 years ago and found that the linen found at an archaeological site in Israel from the 1st century had very similar physical properties to the Shroud of Turin. This finding indirectly supported that the shroud was not a product of the Middle Ages, but may actually have originated from the time of Jesus. Wide-angle X-ray scattering technique. And this is the most shocking discovery. On August 20th, 2024, Italian researchers used a new technique to confirm that the shroud was woven about 2,000 years ago. That is, during the time of Jesus. Specifically, the team of scientists from the Institute of Crystallography of the Italian National Research Council recently analyzed the fabric using the wide-angle X-ray scattering technique. This technique measures the natural aging of linen fibers and converts it into production time. They studied a total of 8 small fabric samples taken from the Shroud of Turin, placing the sample group under X-rays to collect information about the smallest details of the fabric structure and the patterns of the organic cellulose compound of the fabric fibers. Based on what was observed, the research team determined that the Shroud of Turin was likely kept in an environment with a temperature of about 22.5 degrees Celsius and 55% humidity for about 13 centuries before reaching Europe in the 1500s. But the story does not stop there. Many biblical scholars believe that the image on the shroud is not just a physical trace, but also preserves the energy imprint of the great resurrection event. They believe that it was the supernatural energy emanating from the body of Jesus in the moment he conquered death that imprinted on the cloth, creating a miraculous image beyond the grasp of science. Could the Shroud of Turin not only be evidence of Jesus' sacrifice, but also a powerful testament to his power of resurrection? Prophecy fulfilled, miracle, or science? But how was the image of the person on the shroud created? According to the Bible, before Jesus entered Jerusalem for the last time, he appeared before the apostles on a mountain and performed a miracle. His face and clothes emitted a powerful, pure white, but also very gentle light. After that, Jesus told the apostles not to tell anyone about this miracle until after he died and resurrected. Christians believe that in the moment of resurrection, Jesus' body also emitted a similar powerful light, like 14,000 lasers shining simultaneously. It was this light that imprinted his image on the shroud, creating an eternal mark. They believe that this is the real reason that explains the appearance of the image of a person on the Shroud of Turin. In the story of Jesus' transfiguration on the mountain, the Bible records, "His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light." Some scholars believe that the image on the shroud was created by a supernatural energy source, possibly the light emanating from Jesus' body in the moment of his resurrection. This is reminiscent of the image of light mentioned in the Bible when talking about the transfiguration and resurrection of Jesus. So, is the Shroud of Turin A miracle of God? This cannot be proven, nor can it be denied. Therefore, science and faith should be separate. Those who believe in science should continue to seek answers, while those who believe in God should hold fast to their faith. The Shroud of Turin, a sacred and mysterious relic, has gone through a long and eventful journey in history. Science is still on a journey to find answers to the mysteries surrounding it. Whether it is a miracle or a masterpiece of art, the Shroud of Turin is still a reminder of faith, of life and death, and of the supernatural beyond human understanding. Revelation 5:5 in the Bible speaks of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, who is the only one worthy to open the scroll with 7 seals. The shroud, with its unanswered mysteries, can be seen as a scroll containing messages about Jesus' sacrifice and resurrection, preserved for thousands of years to wait to be opened by science and faith. The Shroud of Turin, with its mysteries and shocking new discoveries, will surely continue to be a topic of interest around the world for many years to come. Will future research be able to completely decode these mysteries? And will these scientific discoveries further strengthen our faith in the miracles recorded in the Bible? The answer, perhaps, lies in each person's heart and soul. Hopefully, the insights shared in this video have helped you better understand the prophecies in the Bible and strengthen your faith in God. And be sure to check out other related videos to explore more mysteries and truths about the prophecies in the Bible. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel and share it to spread the message of love and hope. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss our latest videos about the Bible, prophecy, and truth. Thank you for watching.